much for joining me today. Today I have a video for you as a guest designer for Neat and Tangled. I'm going to be using one of their newest products, which is the Polygon background cover die. And I'm going to be using this to do something a little bit different than normal that you would do with a background die. I'm going to be using it as a stencil instead of cutting it with my paper. So here is the background die. It is really cool. It creates this really cool background pattern, very geometric. It's very neat. I'm going to go ahead and put this onto a piece of white cardstock. I want to tape it down with some painter's tape just to hold it in place. And I'm going to start ink blending over top of it using Distress inks. I've got squeezed lemonade first that I'm going to be applying down towards the bottom. Then I'm going to bring in some spiced marmalade and start fading that in towards the middle area. I'm going really heavy-handed with these inks because I want some really saturated colors. I'm going to bring in also a bit of festive berries for some red. So I'm creating an ombre of color from yellow, orange to red. I think this is a really beautiful color combination, and the bold colors work really well with the bold geometric design. So after I've gone ahead and added the colors down, I'm going back over top to even out the blending, get a little bit more saturation, and just smooth things out so that way it's a little bit more seamless. Once I've added in all of the ink blending, I'm going to take off the cover plate die from the paper. I'll just go ahead and remove the painter's tape that I added down, and you see we're left with this beautiful background. Now to clean off the die, it's very easy. I just take a damp baby wipe and go ahead and wipe off all that extra ink. The ink just kind of sits on top of the die, so I don't really have any staining or anything. It works really, really well because they are steel rule dies. So I'm going to add some water splatters on top of this just to give it a little bit more interest. You don't have to do this, but I like being able to get the Distress inks to react and have that really cool water splatter look. I think it just really looks cool. Now bear in mind I did use cardstock for this technique, so this technically can't handle a whole lot of water, but the water splatters I find don't have too much warping on the cardstock and it doesn't end up having any pilling effects. So I find that it works really well to do the water splatters on top of cardstock. I'll go ahead and repeat doing the stenciling background to create a second card. This time, however, I'm not going to apply the ink in a straight line fashion. I'm instead going to kind of have it coming in and fading in from the sides and the areas in a triangular pattern. So I'm adding in some of the orange and red here after I applied down a full layer of yellow, and then I'll start blending that back out towards the yellow, and it's basically creating little highlights of yellow areas, and the darker colors are coming in from the side. So it looks really, really cool. Here as I remove the die, you can see how that looks. I went ahead and added the water splatters the exact same way. And now I'm going to take the second largest of the Simon Says Stamp basic rectangle dies. I'm going to cut out that background panel. You could of course leave it as it was and use the entire piece as your card front, but I wanted to have a nice clean edge and I didn't want to have a border around my background. So I took some red cardstock here from Simon Says Stamp and I've cut them down into A2 size cards and scored them at 5.5 inches. I'm going to go ahead and use these for my card bases. I add some fun foam to the back side of the panels, and I'm going to attach these down in the corner of each of my cards. On both cards, I switched out the corner that it was going to be placed in. So on one of the cards, I have it in the left corner, and the other card, I have it on the right. Now I'm going to create a sentiment banner using one of Neat and Tangled's newest stamp sets. I lined up the sentiment in the middle and now I'm shifting it down towards the right and bottom area of my paper. This is because I'm going to use this to create a shadow effect. So I'm inking up the sentiment using some orange ink from Hero Arts. I'll go ahead and press that down good. I make sure I go ahead and heat set this so that way it's good and dry. I do end up stamping this twice because I didn't press it down fully along the top area of the word thanks. So I'll go ahead and ink it up again and we have a nice clean stamped sentiment. So I heat set that to make sure it was good and dry, and I'm adding some powder tool over top just to cut down on any static cling and any areas that might still be damp from the inking. I did use a dye ink, so dye inks usually dry pretty quickly, but I just like doing this just to be on the safe side. So now that I have my paper prepped and ready to go, I'm going to realign that stamp back over top of the word thanks, but this time it's going to be shifted towards the top left of that stamp sentiment. And so it's offset a little bit so we can have a shadow effect underneath our heat embossed stamping. So I'm going to take some more ink. This is some clear ink from Simon Says Stamp. I'm going to ink up the sentiment, press that down really good, and then I'll be able to go ahead and take my white embossing powder from Ranger to be able to create a white heat embossed sentiment over top of the previously stamped sentiment. So I'll go ahead and tap off the excess ink and then I'll go ahead and use my heat gun to heat set that sentiment. So after I heat set the sentiment, I'm going to go ahead and bring it into my Tim Holtz Tonic Mini Trimmer. I'm going to just trim this down into about 1/2 of an inch wide. Once I've trimmed that sentiment down, I'll go ahead and put some double-sided adhesive on the back side. Now because we did pop up the background panel, I need to add a second piece of foam tape along that area where on the red cardstock, so that way the sentiment will be fully level across this card. I'll go ahead and place that down, and then I'll go ahead and use my scissors to trim down the ends. To embellish my card, I'm using a variety of sequins from Neat and Tangled. I've got some yellow, orange, red, and clear sequins in a bunch of different sizes, and I'm adding these on with some glossy accents. This just adds a little bit of interest and brings out the colors in the background. I think this looks really, really cool and adds the perfect bit of embellishing to these clean and simple cards. The clean and simple design allows the background patterns to really take center stage and get the main focus of the cards, because this technique was really, really cool, and I wanted to be able to have that background be really in focus and have a good impact. So here's a close-up look at the stenciling and the really cool effects that you can get using background dies to do stenciling backgrounds on your cards. So I hope this has inspired you to look at your background dies in a little bit different way and use them for more than just die cutting. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below, and head on over to the blog to get more information on these cards, including still pictures and products used. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and here are 2 more that you might find interesting. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you again soon. Bye!